Hello, I'm Kelty Logan, University of Colorado Boulder, and I'm joined today by Dr. Ho-Young Anthony Ahn of Pepperdine University. Every year, 5 papers are singled out for awards at the annual American Academy of Advertising Conference. This year, Anthony and I will be interviewing the authors who produced those award-winning papers. Today, we'll be talking about the paper that received the Best Article Award from the Journal of Current Issues and Research in Advertising. The title of the paper is Consumer Sense-Making of Political Front Group Messages. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Eric Haley, the author of this paper. Dr. Haley, thank you so much for joining us. Now, in regards to your paper, in your opinion, what is the most interesting or exciting finding from your study?
I wish there were exciting findings. There are concerning findings from the study. We are in an environment of extreme political disinformation and outright information pollution. And advertising, be it issue advertising or political candidate advertising, is contributing to that. Now, we have advertisers and strategists who are trying to get legitimate information out, honest information out, but it's being hampered as well by the other side who are playing on emotions, knowing that if they produce disinformation, that it will likely do its damage before it's ever challenged or removed. And it's a very divisive environment, probably the worst that we've seen in modern history in the United States. So this paper wanted to look at how politically active and knowledgeable people dealt with political advertising, and most specifically one particular tactic, which is something called front group advertising. It's totally legal in the US to be able to hide the true source of an advertising message behind a fictitious or a front nonprofit. So are politically astute people able to understand this political advertising tactic? And the answer is no, unfortunately. So even if our most knowledgeable and politically active voters don't understand political advertising tactics such as front group messaging, we're in trouble. How will even the average person be able to understand that? So I think it's very, very concerning. This paper has started a series of studies that I'm working on with other 3A's colleagues to try to get a better handle more broadly on what is our ability as a voter group to understand political advertising and fundamental political advertising literacy.
Thank you. Our next question in relations to the findings of your research, are there implications from your research that would benefit specifically advertising professionals?
It depends on what you call benefit. All right. So if you're a political strategist and you want to take advantage of the fact that people don't understand these tactics, that could be a benefit, that we are so low in our political literacy, in our political advertising literacy. I would like to switch that around and say we have huge implications for us as educators and academics to be able to be a leading voice in helping people develop political advertising literacy, which requires an extreme much more knowledge of what political advertising is, the tricks of the trade of political advertising, the fact that there are no guidelines for truth per se in political advertising, unlike product advertising, where if Coca-Cola launches a misleading campaign, we have guidelines from the FTC and state attorney generals to take care of that. We don't have that in political communication, and people don't understand that. So we have a lot of work to do to help people be more careful consumers and viewers of these political messages. And beyond that, we also know that we have to do a whole lot more in just fundamental political literacy, because if they don't understand the subject matter of the ads, they don't understand enough about policy and economics and current events and world history to be able to know if the information being communicated in these messages is valid or invalid or useful, not useful. knowledge of just advertising tactics isn't going to help. So it's clearly a very complex challenge that we have in front of us. And I hope that as an academy, as the American Academy of Advertising, we can take much more of a leading voice in this particular area to help raise the level of political advertising literacy in our country.
I deeply share your passion on this subject, and I have to ask, is there a moment when you were inspired to begin this work? Was there a particular event that triggered it, or an article, or whatever?
Well, this has been ongoing in the history of the US for a long time. We've seen political advertising being used to benefit, and we've seen of voters, we've seen political advertising being misused to the detriment of voters for a long, long time. But I think the past 4 years and the years in the run-up to the 2016 election really highlighted just how polluted our information environment is, to the point that people cannot even discern a fact from fiction. And so that lit the fire to really take on this challenge and see if we can do something to help.
When writing this paper and gathering the information for it, did you use a new method, or did you stick to tried and true methods? Talk to us a little bit about the research that went into this.
Well, rather than abstracting things into scales or measures that I thought would be important, I'm a firm believer in going right to the source, and that is talking to the people and seeing their thought processes. So I'm a big advocate of paradigmatically qualitative research, and that's what I did in this situation. Identified through the research and the literature the people who I really wanted to talk to, and those are who are most likely to have the capabilities of understanding this tactic. So use the research from there, but from there really started in an inductive way of talking with people directly. Both tried to balance it both between conservatives and progressives to see how they respond and understand this particular type of messaging. So it was very important to not presume anything, but to let them tell me and let them be the experts and explain to me what was going through their heads. So it's very much traditional interviews and inductive analysis.
And how much of a geographic dispersion did you have amongst your interviews?
Sooner, what we look for is the context. So while there could be some people can define context geographically. Mm-hmm. In this particular situation, the context that we were going for were those people who were registered voters and politically active in a local political party. So they weren't just voters, they were people out there who would go to the DNC meetings, they would campaign on behalf of candidates, they would do voter registration drives. They're really active people who the political science literature says should be the most politically literate. So that was the mental context, the kind of person that we were after. So that was what we were recruiting within, or what I was recruiting within, to eventually get to information saturation, which would be the point at which we're really exhausting the ideas that are coming forth. And quite honestly, regardless, we reached saturation pretty fast. So actually the 50 interviews were way over the amount, but I think it was essential to try to communicate the legitimacy of the findings.
Out of curiosity, did you make an effort to cover a range of ages?
Yes, so people ranged everywhere from early to mid-20s up into 80 years old, men and women. It was predominantly higher educated, of course, because more active, politically active people tend to be more highly educated.
And I guess what I would ask is, as you were accumulating your data, what was the information that you saw that you weren't expecting to see?
I had hoped that people could be more astute at understanding these front groups. And unfortunately, only one person in all 50 interviews who happened to have been a strategist in Washington, D.C. understood it.
How can we make the biggest difference among our students if they say, what can we do to help?
The biggest thing that students can do is pay attention to their history class, pay attention to political science, pay attention to economics, learn about the world, and realize that the reason they're going to college is based in the fundamental assumption that people can self-govern, that they are intellectual creatures and they have the knowledge to be able to take the power into their own hands and make the decisions for how the country should run. College is not about getting a job. So I think we need to kind of rethink that pragmatic get a job, go to college to get a job stance, and realize that college is way more than that. It is designed to create an informed electorate. It is designed to create people who are thinking, critical thinking, and knowledgeable about the world so they can self-govern.
What a great summation of what we've been through in the past couple of years, as well as some marching orders to keep the faith. Thank you. And thanks to Anthony, and thanks to our viewers for joining us today. This was a terrific opportunity for me. I hope you all feel the same.